Syunik province occupies 4,506 square kilometer area, about 800 square kilometers of which is special protected area. It means about 18% of the territory. Let's consider the following data for a better understanding. Lands of agricultural significance of the province are 3,069 square kilometers, in which the proportion of protected areas is 26%. Zangezur Biosphere Complex, SNCO, was established in 2013, which included all the protected areas in the region. Arevik National Park, Shikahor State Reserve, Sosupurak, Zangezur, Khustub, Burakar and Sevlich State Reserves, which previously were acting separately, with the respective regulation developed for them. Protection regime of these territories lost the clarity reuniting in the cover of Zangezur Biosphere Complex, as Biosphere Protected Area concept is not fixed by the Republic of Armenia legislation, and in the law there are no explanations in connection with it. In case of regulation of Biosphere Complex term by law, the scope of legitimacy, powers and responsibilities of the structure will be clearer, and there is a need for being concerned about that and to take final steps. The aim of the project directed to the establishment of biosphere complexes in Syunik province is provision of stable management of natural resources and NSPA, improvement of socio-economic status of the adjacent rural communities, implementation of preparatory works of the establishment of biosphere complexes in correspondence with UNESCO standards. German KfW Development Bank granted 8.25 million euros for all this. Austrian Development Agency, GIZ, UNDP, WWF have allocated funds for the development of specially protected areas in Syunik province in the past, as well as funds from Republic of Armenia state budget. There have been spent huge amounts of money in the last 10-15 years for carrying out of such large-scale projects, but the quality of life in surrounding communities for protected areas is not improved. The program financed by KfW German Bank has a great potential for becoming a copy of the previous ones. The project was launched a year and a half ago, but there has not been implemented yet a visible action. Moreover, in the result of regime implementation of protected areas, the social situation of residents in adjacent rural communities has worsened, as the regime has limited the probability of the development of agriculture, and simply there are no alternative jobs. In the conditions of the supervision of protected areas, people are unable to generate the income from the resources of the adjacent forests, wood, berries, herbs, etc. In the conditions of extremely harsh socio-economic conditions, emigration has been increased in these communities. There can be assumed that funding provided by the mentioned international donors didn't serve to its purpose. Moreover, within the past 2 years in the protected areas, there were recorded cases of poaching and deforestation by industrial purpose. Only within the period of mid-August up to 20th of September of 2015 in the area of Zangezur Biosphere Complex, there was done illegal logging of many oak, hornbeam and maple trees up to termination of their growth degree using chainsaw. There can be assumed that the established regime is not only for such segment of society that doesn't dare to break the law element. However, in the world, in exceptional and unprecedented manner, extension of mining activity is not only implicit but also probable and realistic in the border of the protected area. There is no secret that they are carried out deposit exploration and mining activities on hundreds of hectares in the area of Arevik Park. But this fact gives reason to dispute the circumstance that the precise boundaries of the biosphere complex and cartographic data have not yet been formulated. Thanks to the mining, the boundaries of protected areas are reduced by demand and desire. Zangezur Biosphere Complex area was reduced by 630 hectares by 731 decision of Republic of Armenia government on June 2 of 2015. In particular, the boundaries of Arevik National Park were reduced by 471 hectares, and the area of Zangezur State Reserve was reduced by 159 hectares. These are the official figures, while the numbers of independent experts, the reductions of this area exceed the mentioned figure 2 times. It's implemented in accordance to work programs of Republic Armenia State Cadastre of special protected areas because of lack of cartography and coordinates. As there can be seen, when on December 19 of 2013 the regulation of Zangezur Biosphere Complex was approved by the decision of the government, there was given a legal status to the institution that doesn't have the state border coordinates. It has a property rights certificate which indicates the size of the structure surface, but the coordinates were absent here. That's why the leaders of the adjacent communities of Biosphere Complex lost the vision where the areas begin and where they end. Meanwhile, the absence of the coordinates of Zangezur Biosphere Complex doesn't prohibit the presence of the structure regulation, with which there is limited human activity activity on these areas, and the registered violations are criminally punishable. It turns out that while the weight varies in favor of the choice of one industry, the other time special protected areas, in both cases the holder of rising consequences, in all the privation is the former. Summing all, there can be concluded that the program acts in the conditions of lack of unproductiveness of the expenditures of German government in KfW bank funds, problems related to the management legislative gaps and liability. Thus, for 1.5 years from 5 determined for the implementation of the program is simply wasted, and the adjacent communities in anticipation of a better future turned into a more complex and difficult situation, as the saying goes, between hammer and smithy.